Talking About Horses, bringing you closer to some of the best horsemen in the world for tips, insights, and stories. Listen at home, at work, in the car, or in the saddle. This is Talking About Horses. Here's your host, Patrick King.
Hey there, gang. Patrick King here, and I want to thank you for tuning in for episode number 30 of Talking About Horses. Today I'm pleased to be once again joined by internationally recognized horsewoman, coach, presenter, author, and I'm proud to say my friend, Leslie Desmond. Leslie has experience with horses that is both wide and deep, and you may best recognize her name as being the co-author of the classic text, True Horsemanship Through Feel, with legendary horseman Bill Dorrance. Leslie's back joining me here on Talking About Horses, having been my guest previously on episode number 26. Leslie, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh.
I've enjoyed the programs you've had in the interim.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. This is, I know we've chatted a little bit between last episode and this, and I've been really looking forward to this one here, and I've been talking with a lot of folks who also are very much looking forward to this deal. So.
Okay, well, I don't know how I could have prepared for it. I think I'm just going to try to, I'll just try to release whatever comes out at the right moment. And hope we have a good program for them.
There we go. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. I'm sure it's going to be great. So when we chatted in the last episode, we were talking about how you had gotten started with the book, with writing the book with Bill. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. And we've got some great points to touch on all around the map as far as that goes. But can you take us back there to starting the writing of the book with Bill?
I can. The starting of the writing of it was a good many months after I had encountered Bill. I met Bill in September, and we started writing, actually putting the pen to paper months later. I think it was I want to say the beginning of February, because I hadn't really understood clearly what he meant when he said a fellow'd write a book if he only knew how. And he had mentioned that a couple of times, and that was just a kind of an old-fashioned way of letting me know that he didn't know how to write a book, but that he had that in mind, you see. So I did kind of poke around a little bit in the Monterey area, down in Salinas and stuff. There's some colleges down there, and junior colleges, universities, not too far away. I just was trying to see if anybody within commuting distance to his ranch would come up and tutor him on writing a book. Can you imagine? So that is not what he had in mind. Just not what he had in mind at all. And so I'll cut to the time when we sat down together at the table. A couple of people told me that who knew him, that really that's just the way he was asking. So it was a very humble way to ask. And the thing that was interesting is that he does like to write, and he dictated a few letters that I sent out for him. And so I knew that he had, communication was high on his list, and communicating clearly with people and with animals was high on his list. Dogs, horses, human beings. He was really interested in being well understood, and also in understanding what was trying to be shown or told to him by animals and from people. I witnessed this for years. And it was very consistent. He was not, this didn't vary. He was not vacillating on that point. He was just riveted on the meaning behind someone's effort to communicate. And I was impressed with that, because it is important to be understood, and it is troubling to be misunderstood in a family or by a horse, or, these are moments where you have crossroads with people and misunderstandings, and it can be disturbing in a life, to try to go to to go to sleep on a fight, or go into work where you know your boss and you aren't getting along, or these things are terrible. It really eats people up inside.
Yes.
When you don't like your work, what goes on inside four walls between siblings or across the generations doesn't feel quite right or not smooth. I mean, this is not easy. But anyway, as one of a family of 8, I would say that he probably had quite a bit of experience, and he told me that he did, actually, in some different ways and different little stories he had for me throughout the years, that, learning how to get along the way he did it was to listen and try to pay attention and not make too many waves. And I noticed that he did that with people, and I noticed that he did it with horses too. So I was sort of charged after I agreed to write his book for him, and we started with a couple of articles that I put a couple articles out in a magazine called The Trail Less Traveled that we were talking about bridle horses and that. Those articles came out in '96, and many of the articles that I wrote in The Trail Less Traveled, probably close to 38 or 40 of them, I think, somewhere in there, maybe somewhere around in there. Well, I was writing a lot in those days for that magazine, and many of those articles were topics that I was talking about with Bill at the time, and I was trying to get myself, I guess, in the swing of it, just get the hang of writing on those topics and trying to discuss it and present it in a way that would make sense to the people I was writing with at the time. And I talked with Buck about those topics a lot at the time, and Buck and Bill had, and I'm sure still do, in their, Bill's passed now, but they had a very high regard for each other. So being in the middle of those two ways of interpreting the topic, so you could take any one of those titles in the Trail Less Traveled that went from about, I think it went from '96 to about 2000 or 2001 or 2 or something like that, and then it changed over to become something else. But in those days, it emerged and evolved into the Eclectic Horseman, and I think that's run by the same woman who used to edit for me at the time.
Okay.
And she did a very good job there with both magazines. But at the time, she was an editor, and I think also, I don't know what other job she had there, but in any case, it was really wonderful getting these different topics and proposing topics. Bill would propose some, Buck proposed some, I proposed some. And then as I was really learning how to write about these things in a way that made sense to Buck and Bill, and I got the nod from both of them because I consulted with both of them. Mm-hmm. So somehow I was between those two. I was learning from both of them at the same time, actually, to be honest. I mean, I was writing with Bill at the same time I was writing with Buck. I'd go off the mountain and just go to some clinics with Buck and go pack back up there and go writing the book some more. So those were some really, they were challenging times. They were hard times in some ways because going to clinics and writing books don't pay well. It's not a real good job.
Right.
Right, so you somehow in between you have to figure out, and how does this get all paid for? So, there was a lot of borrowing and a lot of other types of work that went on that was just drudgery. And people helped out when they could. I did little clinics here and there, but mainly I was in the student mode, very heavily in the student mode. But Bill, being a man of carefully chosen words and sometimes few words, after saying a fellow would write a book if he only knew how, we got through that part, and then it came time after I'd done many of these articles where it was really time for him kind of pony up and come out with some words, because I'd written about between 95 or 6 and 98, I think I must have written 25, 30 articles for that magazine and a few after that as well. And so it was really time to get Bill to commit. And as I told you, we sat down many a time. And right after breakfast, I'd say, okay, today's the day. I said to myself, I had one of those little cassette recorders. And I just thought, okay, it wasn't that warm out, There was nothing to go do down in the saddle room. There was nothing to do down in the meat cutting room. There was nothing to do down in the barn. It was too cold for him to be scraping fat off the hides, and he wasn't going to go cut strings or anything. We just had the day in the house, and I thought, boy, now I got him right after breakfast, and I'd take my pad of paper out there and my little tape recorder, and then he'd take a nap. And he'd sit right there. And so that went on, and I'd wait, and then I'd wait. And then he'd say, well, finally, after a while, I'd say, hey, Bill, did we get back to our book? He said, yeah, that's what we're doing, isn't it? And I'm thinking, yep, that's it. So let's go here. So, and he said, well, I was thinking we could get a little lunch first. So those were those kinds of sort of interesting little postponement tactics that he had, because really, in the end, he finally said, it'd be a lot easier to write a book if someone had a question. And I said, well, I have a question. He said, because you wanted to have a conversation about it. I said, well, I didn't want to be rude, but I mean, we've been having a conversation since September about writing that book. It's now February. But the thing is, like he said, a fellow read a book if he only knew how. And just because I could push a pen across a piece of paper didn't mean that he knew how to get his knowledge to my pen.
Right.
It's a lot like, how do you get down to the feet? How do you get your intent through Leslie's pen?
Right.
How do you go through her, from my mouth to her ear, through her mind, down to her arm, through her hand to that piece of paper? How do I do that?
Yeah.
So he came up finally with his first, I think I'll just tell you this one. I think I mentioned this part last time, but it's so good I'll say it again. He said, I said, okay, well, I will ask you a question. I said, well, what's the main thing someone needs to know? Would be a seasoned hand or a professional trainer or just entry-level person. If there's one thing that everybody needs to hear, no matter where they are in the spectrum of skill or accomplishment, goals, whatever, gifted, ungifted, what does everybody need to know? He said, oh, yeah, well, he said, he said, you have your paper ready? And I, of course, had been there for a long time. I said, yes, I do. And he said, because now I'm ready. I said, all right. So I wrote it down. He said, however that horse is how that fella has to be. And I said, okay, I got that part. And I said, all right. So I knew to wait. I waited. I said, is there any more to that? No, he said, that about covers it.
There's your book.
And I said, Bill, that's the shortest book in the world. I said, Bill, this is not a book. And I talked all afternoon about how it was a book, and then I took notes on that conversation, and that is how I got started, because I couldn't just, that isn't even enough to put inside two pieces of paper and make a pretend book.
Right.
That's one sentence. But that sentence is actually the truth.
Yeah.
However that horse is how that fella has to be. And if that fella's, a 4-year-old wandering out to feed a pony, or, a professional trainer who's, up in years and just been at it for a lifetime, that still applies. Somebody said to me the other day, when I was down in Connecticut, they said, oh my goodness, I just wish I knew what you know. How will I ever live long enough? I said, you won't, neither will I. I said, if you want to see what I don't know, just show me a new horse I never met. You'll see what I don't know right now.
Right.
And that's the truth.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so we finally got off the one sentence, and then from there, I knew from my school days I had to make an outline. And making that outline actually was the key to getting Bill really fully engaged in it. He didn't pick up a pen on it, but he certainly did. He was ready every morning after breakfast from that day on, once we got the outline down, and it became our table of contents.
So do you think that with his desire, with his such strong desire to understand and be understood, do you think the outline helped him, because then he could see a little more clarity in what it was he needed to discuss? And was that why maybe you feel he was so slow in the warming up process?
Well, yes. I think there are three things in that. One is that he had an 8th grade education in a one-room school, and it was a couple miles horseback each way to and from. And past the point, the focus was not school. I mean, they had to go to school, but the focus wasn't school. On a spring day, in that family, he was, if he had a pencil and a paper in front of him at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, right up through clear to 14, let's not forget that he was still trying to get out there and ride horses and be part of the crew that went out and took care of the cattle and did everything on the farm. I mean, the kids were sure needed as part of that, and he has a lot of wonderful stories about, about riding back and forth to this school, which they had to do it. But I don't think that learning how to write an outline was high on his list of things to do when he got there.
Right.
So that's why what he used to say frequently when he started seeing people, when the futurities came in the 50s, and I think maybe even earlier than that. I'm not up on my futurities history all the way. But certainly at the end of the 30s and in the beginning of the real heavy involvement and investment in the quarter horse industry that many people were making, not only in terms of good lines and good breeding and really establishing a solid, reputable working horse, which many people did. And, those lines are still, you can find them today. But the competition and the way of exhibiting and competing and getting these horses fit and ready young, that's something that he and Tom agreed on. And they really in their own way tried to fight that. And one day he turned to me and he was telling me about, I had some knowledge of some film that had been taken of them back in the early 60s, when it was still a 16 millimeter film, I think. I watched all that film, and it was a class that they were holding. When they had the time to get together, they tried to get a little club going to show how you could put all these maneuvers, any maneuver you needed, any speed, any direction, any timing, any sequence of maneuvers that had to do with working cow horse or any sort of performance or competitive thing that you'd see in the rodeo. They wanted to demonstrate that and get a lot of local people or regional people, ranch people, to sort of, get them to stop looking at just horses for competition, but get your working horses going. And here's how you do it. And you don't do it by galloping circles. You do it by teaching them how to run straight. And this was the thing that really bothered him and bothered Tom. And I know that they have both told me that personally, and they both worked on it together, which I saw in these films. And it was very moving. I can't remember. They had a name for what they did. And there's actually a little section in one of the first 3 chapters of his book about how they got together to try to kind of slow down the speed on the way that futurities were developing, because what they saw is that the way these horses were being worked too young, they weren't really maturing properly, and they weren't really going to be much more than breeding stock after a couple of years of that type of riding. And this really bothered him greatly. It bothered him greatly, and he referred to those trainers who were sort of along those lines at the time as those faster fellas. He said, and that's where he used to say, not infrequently, that, well, those faster fellas are kind of missing it on the start, that the horse's point of view has a lot to do with whether you're going to get it done in a nice way. I mean, I'm using my language now. He didn't say in a nice way. He would have had another way to say it, but he said, those faster fellas aren't taking the horse's point of view into consideration. And so the dominance that was starting to surface as the status quo, you just make them do it. I mean, we have a show coming up, we're just going to make them do it. And it was disturbing to both of them And I witnessed that. I heard that. I witnessed that. And I saw them actively, both of them, in their efforts to help later on in life some of the people who were actually very good in the futurities and had made names for themselves in some of these national meets and competitions, that the people who finally did turn their attention in Bill and Tom's direction and take some guidance. And it was really a phenomenon. Right at the spot when I was there, I'm not a California native, and I'm not ranch stock, but I do have eyes and ears, and I was paying pretty close attention to the things I saw and heard, and I was also paying quite a bit of attention to the way that, some of these show results and some of the condition these horses were in, and they were really beautiful animals, and there's a lot of good training that went into them as well. But somehow between birth and death, it's just an inescapable fact that a horse is not going to be measured at birth much more than the price that it costs to put him on the ground, and measured at death much more than the cost of horse meat at the market. Mm-hmm. Because in between is where that value gets established. Between birth and death, the price of semen and the price of horse meat is what anybody can establish value. But then Bill would say, yes, but when you're running a one-man ranch, it doesn't matter if that horse can win a futurity. He's got to get you around that acreage, and he's got to get you to where he's got to get you to that cow. And so Bill's perspective really was as a working man horseback. Mm-hmm. And I love that, because I came from a hard-working background. The people in my family worked hard. The people in his family worked hard. I could relate to that ethic, that work ethic, and I could relate to his respect for the horse. And it's not so much that he had anything invested in putting anybody down. That was certainly not his way. But he really wanted people to understand that when a horse couldn't perform, there was more to it than the horse's character being wrong or personality being sour. He said there's always going to be something that horse is trying to tell a fella, and that's, pretty much what he wanted you to be on the lookout for. Is, what is it that you're missing from the horse's point of view that could help you to help that horse a little better do what you'd like him to do. And so, but before we got started on that book, I never told you this, but I told Bill I didn't want to write that book until I was sure that there wasn't already a book about feel out there. I said, how I'm going to feel if it's just like when I made those videos for kids. Mm-hmm. I bought about 20 or 30 videos that people had made for children. And it wasn't until I found the one that the British Horse Society had put out in 1993 or 4 that I decided, okay, there's room for one more. Mm-hmm. Bill got kind of upset because I kept bringing all these books home. I went out and bought one more. We didn't have Amazon back then. I was driving around bookstores, thrift stores, secondhand stores, going to different branches and looking at their libraries and borrowing books, bringing them home, showing him to Bill and seeing what he thought. And then one day he just looked at me and said, you know what, don't buy another book. Just don't buy another book. We got to write this one. So I said, all right. So that's, and then we started and stopped that book a few times because I had to go make money and had to go travel and had to try to practice. Sometimes he got upset that I couldn't do the things I was writing about. He'd say, okay, now's the, fellow's got to walk his talk. And I said, yeah, I know, but I can't do, saddle isn't, I'm not sitting on the saddle, I'm sitting at the kitchen table. Mm-hmm. And we had conversations like that. I mean, it was we just had normal conversations about everyday stuff, day in, day out. And he'd say, you gotta, and of course I had, my horses weren't fit. They were up on his ranch, and then they were down in Carmel Valley behind some dentist's office. My horses for about several months were in this little place where they stored cars and boats and stuff. It was kind of hard to find places near enough where I could go to the ranch and tend my horses and
Mm.
Sometimes these horses weren't in the best housing. But anyway, in the end, I had them up at the ranch enough where Bill could watch me out the window if it was cold. And then I'd bring them up and just show him what I thought he meant by what he said. And then I'd untack and come in, and sometimes it'd be freezing or soaking wet. He'd be watching out the window or standing in the rawhide room looking out the window while I rode, if it was too cold or if it was, he had something to do in there. He said himself that he could see me. And then I'd be done, I'd come in, I'd say, well, how did that one look? And then maybe I was trying to step that horse around or try to get him to take a hind foot and not step it across another one, but take a hind foot and reach it out.
Mm-hmm.
Just take a lateral step with a hind foot, widen up the stance instead of cross it.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said he saw that was kind of a missing piece in a lot of what was going on at the time and sort of the popular techniques that were out there. There weren't too many people that were trying to get a wider stance. They were ending up with horses that were standing sort of on top of themselves, almost behind.
Okay.
Crossing over behind so many times in both directions that pretty much the horses just got so tight back there that they stayed almost on a triangle,
Mm-hmm.
Front seat wide apart and the back seat kind of stuck up underneath there or crisscrossed or I don't know what. But anyway, he didn't want to see that too much, so he asked me to try to walk a horse, and then instead of, let's say you're going down the straight line, and I'd walk from as far as he could see me out the rawhide window, and sometimes he'd open the door and poke out there. I'd get down at one end of the, I don't know what you call that place, it was just sort of a place where you could, I guess you call it the barnyard, just between the buildings, and it was enclosed, but it was big enough to ride in. So I'd ride from one end to the other, sometimes 20, 30 times. And then I figured, he didn't say anything, he just watched. And I'd come in, and so here was one exercise I had. I'd go on a straight line, and then I'd just open the forehand a little bit, sort of like a zigzag, but not really, just to take your forehand off. We're not talking now about shoulder in or anything like this, or haunches in. We're just talking about you're just going to open that forehand and just go a little bit off your path. And
Okay.
You're going to go that way, and then you're going to open that shoulder and go back on your path. And then maybe you'll open the shoulder again the same side and go to the other side of your straight line. It's just shifting directions, more almost like if you're on a path in the woods.
Okay, kind of a little meandering side to side sort of as you're going along.
Yes, but nothing like a side pass, nothing like a leg yield, nothing except you just open one rein, release the other one at the same time. I release my left rein, release the left rein down that shoulder groove. That'll pick up and open the right leg. And so that shoulder opens on the release of the opposite rein.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was interesting to find out. So I started using that. And he said, all right, now you're going to... So I got that. That was acceptable. I don't know how long it took. It felt like forever. But then he said, well, now we want to make sure that you can get kind of a... He didn't use this word. I can't remember. He said you just want to step that horse over behind. But he didn't mean take one foot across the other and load the forehand. He meant you're walking down and you need, instead of opening a shoulder, you want to open a hip.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay? You're not pushing it over there.
Mm-hmm.
You're not taking a left heel to push a horse's hips to the right. You're just going to separate those back legs as you're walking. And he never told me what it was for, but he just asked me to do it. Well, needless to say, that was a big task.
Yeah.
And yes, it is a big job. You go ahead and try and do it sometime.
Right, exactly.
And so, yes, that's a big one. So down I went. I must have tried 30 times back and forth, and I wasn't drilling per se, but I was out there for an hour, just walking back and forth, seeing if I could do that, and I'd maybe make a circle here and there, or let the horse stop a while. It was real low key, we're talking, not like I was trying to drill this thing and get it done.
Mm-hmm.
But it went on like that for some days, and I'd come in, I'd unpack her and put her up, and I'd come in and we'd sit down. And he didn't drink coffee. He thought it tasted terrible, so I would drink coffee. And I'd say, well, I'd wait about 5 or 10 minutes. This was sort of the routine, you know. He'd just look at me and just, I knew it wasn't going to be good what he'd say. And then, so it was kind of like, who's going to talk first about how bad that was? So So it was always I who would kind of crack that silence. I don't know how. I just couldn't stand the suspense, you know. You're trying so hard. You want to please your teacher. You finally just got to beg for a noise to come out of that mouth. So I said, or a nod or something. And so I would just say, I just finally just got used to saying, well, Bill, how did that look? And then he'd say, way too often, yeah, I don't feel like to try something else. Oh my God. Okay, thanks. I didn't say that. I wasn't cheeky with him at all like that. But
Right.
I thought, oh my God, I was crestfallen. Yeah, of course I felt like I could try a lot of other things, but so that was the end of that. And then later, maybe at dinner, I'd say something like, well, what would you do? So, you know, several hours would have elapsed by then, and he'd had, because he wasn't trying to make it hard for me. He didn't know how to communicate it.
Right.
Because he said, well, feel's a hard thing to talk about. So I stuck with it, because then it was actually right about the time that Buck was doing a lot to teach us all how in Watsonville those clinics there were so helpful. There used to be 5-day clinics, you know, in those days. And Buck was saying, you know, if you're going to bring a heel in on a horse, don't think he's forgotten the last time you did that. And then that's all Buck would say. And then you had to figure that one out. So finally, you know, you have one brain cell left, and you're going to use it on that puzzle. And that puzzle is, okay, yeah, he doesn't forget the last time. This was just this mysterious language they all used, and sort of sorted out. And maybe that's not quite so fair to Buck, because he did explain it in the end. He said, you know, if you take your leg off a horse, kick him, and he knows you're going to kick him, why don't you just not kick him?
Yeah.
Usually, you know, he already knows what's coming, so don't wait for him to brace up, suck down, hold his breath, and, you know, get dull on your leg. Just release him to go.
Right.
And on those colts, Buck would release those things at a gallop, and away he did go. You know, and he'd say, get him in a gallop and run him, because once you're on your way, you're not going to do too much bucking. It's really when they kind of start to wad up and try to get you off when you choke them back down. So Buck was pretty clear on that gallop, and I come to find out Bill was pretty clear on it too, because, you know, he had me do quite a bit of that. But just getting control of the hindquarters was really important to Bill, and because, here's why. If you want to, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about the futurities too in any of these competitions, and there were people who were working with both Tom and Bill in those days who rode dressage, and there were some people who definitely knew the value of what they had to offer, and they also used to read those cavalry manuals by Boucher and the Don. Those were right on their bookshelf. I mean, they were reading the classics, and some of the old French masters, those treatises were right there. They were well worn. You know, it doesn't really matter what saddle you have. It's just where you want the feet. And so they didn't have any problem working with people who were from other disciplines. To the contrary, they were very happy to help. And so that was the beauty of it, but it wasn't any kind of, and there was no clique around there. There was no, oh, you write English, don't come here, or, you know, you've only got a mule that runs away with you, that busts out of every fence you have. So, you know, you don't have a nice ranch horse like we do. It was none of that. It was none of that. Anybody who needed a hand, they were right there. And Buck too. It was wonderful. Those are really, really good times to be out there, and I was so glad I had access to all that information, because what you find out when you start focusing on where that back end is underneath you, and you start learning how to release it left and right, you realize that when you can put a back foot where you want it, you can transfer the weight from the front feet there and then get the front feet to follow your reins without any trouble. Because there is no following your rein with the front foot when there's weight on it. And you can't. It looks as bad as it feels. Maybe it feels terrible, actually. You know? So those were just those were some steps along the way. But learning all these things from when he couldn't show me, that's why it was so helpful. I went and talked to Buck many times. Sometimes I'd drive a long way to a clinic just to try to ask him a question. Bill really got me confused a couple times. And I remember, I can't even tell you, there was one time when he and I just reached an impasse that was so heavy. It was over at the Holman Ranch. He was coaching me out the window of his car, and he got so upset that I couldn't figure this thing out. He got out of that car, and, well, I wouldn't say he marched, because he wasn't marching in those days. He was 91.
Mm-hmm.
But he had his cane, and he got out of that car, and the way he shut that door, I just thought, oh, no, I'm really not getting it now. And so he took a hold of my mare. I was trying to do it on my own horse, what he wanted. And it was so painful for me to try to be a good student and a good messenger and a good writer, and we were well into the book by then. We were well into sort of like the last, maybe section 6, 7, and 8 of chapter 4. That's chapter 4 is really that's kind of the pillar of the thing, because you can kind of, if you can follow him through there and the pictures and some of the text there, maybe support that with chapter 8 and 9 mainly, and 5. At 4, 5, 8, and 9, those are really the chapters that you can train a horse right out of that book. And I know a few people who have, who didn't know how to train before. But we were right in the sections there where you really were trying to talk about how you combine a change in posture, a change in speed, a change in direction, up and down the transitions, and do it through release and feel. And do it so that horse understands how to make a seamless transition in the posture you want, with the weight where you want, and the feet where you want, when you want, at the speed you want. And he was a firm believer that a lot of this, you could get on the ground, you could just get on and ride that horse. You would get on and ride that maneuver. He told me he could do it. He had done it. He told me that Fred did it. Fred did it on horses that Bill called them kind of snorty. And you know what I mean by a snorty horse, don't you?
Mm-hmm. I've been around a couple of those.
Well, he said Fred much preferred them because you never had to worry about whether they were going to go or not.
This is true.
They were going to go.
Yeah.
So he said that was one nice thing to take out of the one problem you didn't have when you were on a snorty horse was whether you were going to liven them up or not. And that's yeah.
You can't beat having that available right there under the surface.
Yeah, exactly. So he said, yeah, then it'd be a matter of a fellow's timing and his feel whether he was going to get the desired result. That's for sure.
Oh my!
Oh my God! Yeah, that brings to mind any rides, Patrick, that you've had.
It does. It does. Yeah, it sure does. And plenty I can think of where the timing wasn't just quite right.
When was the last snorty horse you were on?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You know, yeah, it's You know, it's funny. There were a lot more of those when I first got started learning about these things.
Yes, I'm sure.
They got a lot less snorty as I got a little smarter.
Right. And you probably got smarter and didn't get on them either.
You're damn right.
Oh my God. Well, that's one of the things that was fun about the number of clinics I was able to attend when Buck was in California in the early 90s, right up through, well, most of the 90s really, 90 through right to 10 years there pretty much. But anyway, and I know he's still out there every day, but in those days, there was not a horse that he would, I mean, I never saw him not finish what he started.
Mm-hmm.
If he was going to ride it, he rode it.
Yeah.
And it was really, really it changed my world one day in Watsonville, California. There were a lot of colts there that day. I don't know why there were so darn many of them. But anyway, he just set about doing the groundwork and the saddling and the sitting on every single one of them, except maybe one, maybe a couple of them were too young for that. That's for sure. Maybe one or two were too young and too slight a build for a shoe he didn't get on. They were, almost like ponies or something. But boy, you watch somebody go through a string of 20 horses and come out the other side with a left and a right and a stop and a start. That is something to see.
Yeah.
And it took out, for me, it removed a lot of the mystery about colt starting and doing it the cowboy way, doing it the vaquero way, and the idea that the vaquero way was just sort of the lifted pinky. We don't. There's no force involved. There's plenty of force involved.
Right.
There was plenty of domination involved, and there was plenty of deadlines that didn't have a thing to do with the futurity that had to do with moving cattle.
Right.
It had to do with springtime. It had to do with beef markets. It had to do with fencing.
Mm-hmm.
It had to do with whether you had whether your family was expanding, whether you had to hire guys. I mean, there were not just these relaxed out there looking pretty cowboys walking around waiting for someone to take their picture. Far from it. I mean,
right. Well, that was the real deal. It is interesting. There seems to be so many, I usually refer to them as fairy tales, about how slow and quiet and mindful everything was. But that's just not the reality of a working situation like that.
No, it is not. All you have to do is look through Ernie Morris's books to see.
Right.
You can see these horses they're tied together with 4 feet and a fence post stuck between those hobbles to keep them on the ground while they just tip their head over sideways and say, "Now listen, horse, stop it."
Right. Exactly.
And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do.
Right.
If a guy, if your whole remuda is gone, or you got a whole pen full of broncs, and you've got a job to do, and you got, 3 kids and a wife and another state you've got to send a payroll home to. I mean, good Lord, you got to get the colt broke and get on and go. It's not like you're going to try to beat him up and leave a crease in his mind because, by the way, you still have to ride that thing.
Exactly.
This is the thing that people forget when they see what looks like a horse getting mistreated. There's plenty of things that don't look right to an uneducated eye, and neither does it look right to an educated eye when someone just is pounding the heck out of a horse all day long until he so dull he doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly.
There are more horses today that you can whip and kick and pull on that'll just stand there.
Right.
They're all over the place.
Right.
And that is as alarming to me as it is for some people who might have created horses like that, to see what goes into having a horse understand that it's time to do some work. You, like the rest of us, need to work for a living. That's not about justifying brutality. That's about, if you don't have any other way of getting down to the feet and getting the point across, you can take the use of their feet away from them for 5 or 10 minutes, and they'll start to understand who's in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
Now that doesn't mean that shortcut or that way of going about getting the point across is what needs to be done today. We're talking about when a guy he came into a ranch, might have had nothing in his pocket, nothing in his belly, and he gets 2 colts 3 years old that are 16 hands. He says, "Okay, you're going to ride them on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
We're leaving Friday. Here's your colt."
Yep.
And it's Tuesday morning. And this thing doesn't let you get within, 100 yards of you.
Right.
So how are you going to be saddled up? Well, a lot of guys had it figured out.
Right.
So if you look through these vaquero books and you listen to some of these old stories and you listen to what Bill said about Fred and what Bill did also, it takes a lifetime to learn how to live a life,
Yes.
And when you don't have the pressure of running that one-man ranch and doing that That was a lot of acreage he had up there on Mount Toro, and a lot to do with before his sons became part of a working crew. So that was a lot to do. Train the colts, breed the cattle, separate them, mark them, all of it. And of course, that's where that beautiful cooperation between the ranch families had such a place in history, and still does, I think, to some degree. Certainly not like it did. But anyway, that whole flavor of the life that Bill came from was so rich in our conversations and so rich in my experience there. I mean, I don't really talk about it much because I don't know. I mean, it's nobody ever asks, really. But when I have a chance to talk about Bill and talk about that experience there, I would be really remiss if I didn't mention that one of the things I miss the most about about that experience and about that whole was just the feel of his sincerity, the feel of his genuine commitment to spread his belief that a horse is set up to succeed does not need to be corrected. A horse that understands where you want those feet is going to put them where you want, and you will be able to go out and do a job and not dilly-dally around by saying, now, pull, jerk, correct. I mean, he just saw that as a colossal waste of time. And so over a lifetime of running that ranch by himself, and Fred the same, because Fred worked on a lot of ranches as a single hand sometimes in the beginning, with ranches that were getting going and whatnot, ranches that were massive pieces of real estate with just 2 or 3 guys in the beginning. Some of those California places they were. As I recall from some of the stories Bill told me. And so if you were going to get a horse to be your wheels and your partner in, branding and moving and sorting and taking care of cattle when they're sick, and taking care of their feet when they're lame, and all the rest of it. I mean, if that horse wasn't a partner, guess what? You'd have to learn how to run pretty fast, and that would mean you'd have to take your cowboy boots off, and that was not going to happen. So you kind of had to learn how to get to what that horse needed you to know about him, which was where do you want his feet, in what sequence, and at what speed, and when.
Right.
And that is still, in one way, that's what you teach.
Yes, very much.
That's what you are trying to show people too.
Right.
But anyway, I don't know. Maybe I've said enough about all that. I don't know whether this is interesting or not.
No, I think it's very interesting, and I'm curious to go back to that moment where you were riding your mare and Bill got you a bit confused and seemed to get frustrated. What was it that you were working on in that moment?
Backing a circle. Backing a circle in hand. He could not. Yes, and I'll tell you, it's a difficult thing to explain.
Yes.
And he didn't draw. He was kind of, his hands were kind of stiff, and he wasn't big with a pen at that point. But when you're backing a circle, you want to have that hip reaching toward you. You're backing the circle on the left side of your horse. That means you're on the left shoulder facing the back, and you're opening that shoulder to the right, and that left hip is coming your direction, straight laterally toward your right hip, not toward your right hip, but as you're stepping left, if you're stepping to your left, facing backwards, and that horse is stepping to the right with his shoulder, as you step left following that shoulder, that hip that you're looking at right in front of you there, that left hip is going to be stepping out. To every step you take to the right with a forehand, that hip is going lateral to the left. So you're really on the inside of the circle that is going, but the horse is bent away from you. You're on the outside of the circle. The horse is reaching to the inside of the right turn, and you're on the outside directing his shoulders away from you.
Yes,
That's the thing. But the reason, and then he gets frustrated because he really wasn't able to, he wanted to show me how to do that so badly. but he couldn't keep up with the shoulder. He couldn't ask her to take that step because he was still working on 2 canes and trying to handle her. He had 1 cane on his belt, 1 in his hand. He was trying to handle the reins, and then she'd take a step and kind of pull him a little, and then that got a little bit iffy. So that was a really really tight moment. And that's why Backing a Circle didn't make it into the book. Because he couldn't explain it and he couldn't show me. And then I took that directly to Buck. I mean, I said, what is this maneuver? I was destroyed over this. I spent weeks with Bill trying to understand it. It's not like he tried for a day to tell me out the window and then he got out of his car and he said, oh, forget it.
Right.
I'm talking weeks, Patrick. So, I mean, you know, Bill's concept of time was a whole lot different than what people have in their idea about time today.
Yeah.
If it was going to take me 6 months at the walk to figure out how to walk and circle backwards with my horse, he was going to have me do it. But in the end, it was the impact. There was one impasse we reached right there. And it may have been the only one. I think it was the only one, actually.
Wow.
But anyway,
and so what was the point that it started to make sense to you? Do you remember what it was that helped it to make sense?
Oh, you mean after Buck got involved with that, and after Buck was answering my questions about it?
Sure.
And showing that, you mean?
Yeah, the whole process of backing the circle. What you said that you and Bill worked on it quite a bit, and then you took it to Buck. What was the piece that helped to bring it clarity?
Well, first of all, I didn't understand what the purpose of it was. You see, everything else we had talked about, including 1-tempi lead changes. I mean, Bill could change leads on a horse riding down the road. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Here you go. Mm-hmm. He said, he was so cute. He said, yeah, just wiggle your toe in your boot. I said, okay.
Yep, that's all.
Yeah, that would be after you really knew what was going on, perhaps, and you really understood everything else that led up to that. Sure, I was.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'd be a long day before that happened. But when he said that, it let me know that he knew that revealed worlds to me about the sophistication of the field he was conveying and could also pick up. It was very cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, if he had told me that your horses will change leads better, your one-sided horse that's been handled on the left his whole life will pick up a lead, will be equally fluent in his lead changes, fluent and fluid in his lead changes. If you can back a circle from the ground, a smooth, fluid circle where there's nobody pushing and nobody pulling and there's no feet being dragged in the dirt, you've got really nice elevation of the withers, and your horse is just suddenly gathered up and collected and ready to take you right through that turn. If I had known that by reaching the hips laterally, and I'm not talking now about crossing over behind, I'm talking about you pick up a diagonal. So let's say your horse he's on his balance point. Let's say that you've got so in other words, when you're backing a circle, you're basically separating your push leg, your landing leg from your weight-bearing diagonal in that lope. Mm-hmm. Okay, so as your right front foot reaches to the right and your hip reaches to the left, that's going to be your right lead. Because you're asking that horse to use his pelvis, his adductors, his glutes, correctly use his psoas and his performance muscles. You're asking him to take the whole works and really use himself laterally. Extend out laterally that foot. Because you see, just because you can take a horse across himself, you can contract those inside leg muscles. That isn't going to necessarily mean that he's strong on a lead. Just because you can set a hip off your leg, you got to be able to bring a hip to your leg. And that's really what Bill was trying to say, but he didn't say that. He didn't tell me that if I could do that, I'd get the lead changes on the stuff things that were being brought to us all the time. You see what I mean?
Gotcha. So it was a challenge that seemingly had no real point that you could see in that moment.
Yeah, I didn't understand where we were headed with it. And it's not that he lacked vocabulary, it's that between the frustration of watching me not understand the words he used and him not being able to demonstrate it, and when he tried to, finally, out of total exasperation, got out of the car and came marching across that indoor arena at the Holman Ranch, I just thought my world was coming to an end. I thought I was going to get fired from the book. Because I just didn't want to let him down. No.
Right.
I really didn't. And so, Buck, later on, we had already passed the part of the book where he said, no, we're leaving that one out. Because really, and in a way, he was correct, because no better than we could communicate about it, we couldn't get any pictures of it, there would be no point in trying to have people learn that from the book when we couldn't even have a discussion about it.
Yes.
But anyway, Buck shed the light on that was important, and he did that actually while we were writing it. Bill was already so immersed in reading and thinking, and we basically just decided to leave that one alone. And we decided to leave a few things alone. And one of the things we decided to leave alone was making a movie. Because I may have mentioned to you that he had picked out 2,100 pictures for this book.
Yes.
Remember I told you that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, about 4 times he wanted me to put all those pictures out at the same time so he could have a look. Do you know what that house looked? Do you know what that house looked like?
Probably looked like a tornado hit a yard sale.
You remember that movie where what was in that thing? Jane Fonda, where that Xerox machine went 9 to 5.
Oh my gosh, yes, 9 to 5, yes. Jane Fonda and who was it, Dolly Parton? Yeah.
Whoever it was, that house of his looked like that place a couple of 3 times, and I finally said, Bill, I can't do this anymore. Because by the time you lay out, this is not funny. I was running down to the Carmel Valley, what was the name of that place? There's a drugstore down there, made the pictures. I had so many packs of pictures. He said, well, there's one. He said, gotta have that one in there. I said, okay. He said, do you have the one before it and the one after it? I said, yep, got it right here. The number's right on it. Look at the back. So I taught him how to read the numbers on the back, the film was right on there. Well, by that time, we literally, I kept written pages, 50 pages worth of notes on these pictures, just the number of them, 2,100 of them.
Wow.
You go 50, do you know how many, it's 40 pages, 2,100 photos, right, 50 a sheet. You can do the math.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And they're just numbers. And that's before they were put into paragraphs, no captions, no chapters, no nothing. And if you want to know about writing that book, some of those days were just, it took me a whole day to lay them out and 2 days to pull them up and not lose track.
Well, see, you could have just made that a picture book titled "However That Horse Is How That Fella Ought to Be."
I wish I had. Well, finally, listen, but you want to know something? It's not even funny. At the end, it was only 3 months before we were going to print. I had to break it was a year before we went to print that I had to break the news to them that we weren't going to have any book with 2,100 pictures in it.
Oh my goodness.
Patrick.
That's because Encyclopedia Britannica right there.
Well, by that time I had already talked to Palace Press about paper and books, and I had chosen paper and what we could afford on the paper and the quality that we wanted, and how it was going to be a hardback book. And do you realize that 2,100 book? That book was going to be it's already 386 pages long.
Right.
And we took out 2/3, so that was going to be almost a 1,000-page book.
Wow.
I said, Bill, nobody's going to pick this one up.
Right.
They're going to need like an extra person to hold it, like a page turner. You're going to have to sell a desk,
right,
a stand,
right,
and that's it. And we're not doing this.
The book comes with a wheelbarrow to move it.
It comes with a UPS driver. I'm telling you, This is not funny. So I had to call him and tell him this because I was out of town, and I finally had to break it to him. And he didn't say much, because he was really attached. And then he said, well, he called me back because he had a flip phone in his pocket. He was really handy with that thing. And he called me right back after that conversation where I told him, I said, when I come back there at the ranch, we're going to lay those lay those pictures out one more time. That's it. And then I'm going to really got to do some trimming down, And he said, well, okay. That was it. I could tell he was upset.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to say it. He was bothered by that.
Yeah.
So, so I said, okay, then you know how it is when this conversation isn't quite how you wish it were.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I said, man, this is a tight moment here. Well, 10 minutes later, he called back. He said, okay, well, we don't have to finish our book. We'll just make a movie. I said, oh my God, make a movie.
And you're what, 4 years into the process at this point?
3.5.
3.
And now we're gonna bail this thing and make a movie.
Oh my
Are
gosh.
you kidding? Well, there had already been some lady come up to the ranch and taken some pictures. I guess they finally did catch up with that film. I think maybe that's the film that they used for the Riata piece. I think it's called. Anyway, there's a couple other videos that were done of Bill with Randy Reeman and
Oh, yeah.
other people there. There's rope. Well, Joe did one. There's roping to do, and then there was one about the braiding. Anyway, that lady. So finally, he got all fired up and said, "Well, we can just forget this book." Pretty much, he didn't say it rudely like that, but you could see it was just like he was pulling a huge distance in there, and he was just gonna try to get somebody to make a movie because that's what all those 2,100 pictures represented to him was
Right.
in sequence. It was the motion, stop, action, changes. And he said one day, when I got back there, I said, anyway, I cut my trip short wherever I was. I can't remember, but I came right back to the ranch. Forget that. I didn't want to. That was too upsetting. So I made a beeline back there, and I went. And I said, hey, you know what? We don't need to make a movie. We don't need to get too upset about things here. Let's just take the very, very best pictures. And he said, well, there's so many particles of feel here that a fellow needs to see it all. And that's really the difference between living with a horse and working with that horse every day and going out once a month or once a week for a riding lesson. You miss the whole thing about the horse if you're not looking, feeding, walking, closing gates, watching them eat, watching them breathe, watching them have babies, watching them interact, watching them tear around, watching them in the rain. If you miss all that, then your experience of your tacked up horse in an arena or plodding down a trail behind somebody else is such a limited slice of what that horse's reality really is. That horse can only show you what you can show that horse.
Yeah.
Which gets back to his original premise, which is however that horse is how that fella has to be. Mm-hmm. But one forgets that the reason there aren't more dead people around is because however that fella is how that horse has to be.
Yeah, right.
And those horses are so gracious and so deep and so giving that's why there aren't more casualties. That's why we still have a horse industry. I mean, for heaven's sakes, if 50% of the people who didn't know how to ride got on a horse and got their life ended, that'd be the end of that industry.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
You'd have a 50% casualty rate, you wouldn't have the horse industry we know today. So what Bill was trying to do is to get us to reach in there and get to that horse and meet him halfway, or more than halfway. Mm-hmm. And anyhow, those were some pieces of it. And what I started to say earlier is that one of the things that I miss the most as I think on it and I just close my eyes and I put myself right there in those years and in those days and in those endless hours of waiting for him to speak and to come up with a sentence that he wanted me to talk about. He taught me patience. That's what he did. I might not have been very And I did learn patience because he never said anything that wasn't worth listening to. In the years I knew him. How many people do you know who you can say it about?
Right, exactly.
I mean, most people don't think before they speak, and it's very closely connected to why people don't think before they act. It's a discipline to think before you speak, and it's a decision as well. So that part of things, what I started to say, and still have been 3 times trying to say this, it brings up a lot of emotion in me, is the thing that I miss the most is the smell of that rawhide room. And the smell of that barn where you used to scrape the fat off those hides. All those little outbuildings around there, the meat room, where they used to do the shoeing, where they used to, the saddle room, all those rooms had a slightly different odor, slightly different smell from what went on in there. And all of it, none of it had any chemical smell. None of it was not just make you feel like your feet were in the ground so deep that all hell could break loose and you were just going to be okay if you had that air going into your lungs. Because what that smell was the collective experience of what those horses had done and what was being prepared for them. You prepare all that rawhide gear and you have all that leather and saddles and blankets and dried up spit and dried up grass and all those things. By the time you mix all of that in there in one room for 50 years and close the door, it's cooking in there.
Yeah.
You know? So that's what I miss, is that ranches don't smell like that anymore.
Right. I can only imagine the stories those buildings could tell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. But anyway, it was a privilege, and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best. I try to do my best all the time. Sometimes it works better than others.
Yeah.
But they were irreplaceable experiences, I guess you'd say.
Certainly. So talking about the rawhide room, I know Bill did quite a bit of braiding. You mentioned the video that he did with Randy Riemann, that 4 strands of rawhide. I got a chance to see that video. That was a great one. And I remember from chatting with you previously that there were lots of times when you would try to get him to talk about the book and he would end up retreating to the rawhide room. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I remember you telling me about that. So I think there's more to the rawhide room that we need to hear about.
Yeah, there is. I have fond memories of that rawhide room. The main thing I think that was so nice in there because he talks more in there because his hands were busy and he knew what he had to do. His mind was really focused and talking. He talked more freely in there than he did when we were trying to write our book. So it was easy for me to follow him down there with a pen and paper. Because I knew after he would tell me about, he showed me about all the way he skived those strings and stretched that and bundle it and wrap it and make these he just had it all figured out how he was going to get the springs had to be just so, they were beveled, they were skived just right, they were just the right length, just the right moisture, just the right texture, just the right length, cut perfectly. You get everything just done in such a way down there. And he would have he'd have a rawhide riata going, and then he'd have 5 or 6 rawhide Hondas that he was making and stretching at the time. And maybe he'd have 1 or 2 Bazals that were partly done. He was busy down there, and his hands knew their way around. His fingers were stiff, but he could fly through that braid just deft. He was skilled at it. One day he looked at me and he said that there were a couple braiders coming over to him for some instruction, and they wanted to see his. They knew Louis Ortega, and they wanted to see Bill's work because they had asked Ortega about Bill's work, and they didn't like what he said because he didn't say anything. So they wanted to drive up and see Bill.
And Louis Ortega, for our listeners that maybe don't know that name, he was a pretty prominent braider, yeah?
Yes, very. And he actually wrote, he wrote a couple books. Louis Ortega had a couple books out, and I've got them over there on the shelf. I don't remember he had some interesting things written in the frontispiece. But anyway, he was a very competent braider, very well known. His work is sought after still. But there was they used to go to gear shows, and I guess, I don't know if they were juried shows or exactly how they did it, but they were very well aware of each other's work. But these two guys showed up one day, and they had been down to visit with him. And they had known him. I don't know if it was a visit they had just had or if it was years ago. I honestly have to say I don't know when he passed, but they knew him, and they didn't like the way that he had replied when they asked him about Bill Dorrance's rawhide. So they made a point to come up, and they made an appointment to come and see Bill's work. That's the first time I saw him ever break out that what he felt was the best he ever did. So it was really wonderful because he had saved that sort of as a memento of his sort of a cherished connection to his brother Fred, because Fred taught him how to braid. And Fred taught him how to braid because when Bill arrived down there in California, Fred had a nice set of equipment ready for him. And I think he repaired one or two things once. And then when something else broke, he just said, "Look, you gotta get yourself a hide and get working, cowboy," kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "Boy, that was a shock." He said, "That was a shock." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, there's quite a little bit to it." And I said, "Okay." And then he showed me his patterns, and then he showed me his books, and then he showed me how he calculated distance and string width, and it's involved.
Yeah, it's quite a process, yeah.
Yes. So anyway, it was also not an option. It's not like you were going to decide not to braid, and you were just going to go down to Selena's tack shop and get yourself, a nice hair rope and a set of hobbles. That just was not happening.
Right.
So by the time he broke his riata twice, Fred had about had it, because Fred was far away and was, and what do? You're a cowboy without a riata? That's not much of a cowboy, is it?
Right.
So that's when Bill set about learning how to braid. And what Fred used to do, he did a lot of braiding too, but he did it mainly for himself. And he made more, I don't know whether I could say he made more money. He certainly was wired differently than Bill. Never met him, of course, but he had an energy level that was, as Bill said, he didn't sit still much, and he had a very retaining memory. So Bill admired him for his I guess he had a high idol, you might say. He didn't have much of a governor on that engine. Fred didn't. He was on the go, and so between his retaining memory, he said he could read something once. He could read a manual once, and he'd have it. So what he would do is go around to a lot of these ranches. Instead of sit there braiding for money, he'd get extra money, he'd go and fix busted water pump. Those windmills were always.
Oh, yeah.
Those wind-driven water pumps, those stock tanks had to be full. So that's where you could find Fred on top of one of those a lot, according to Bill. And so Bill really started to pick up on the braiding. And I remember seeing a notebook of his. I think it was something like $2.75 for a pair of handmade hobbles.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that. I think he was selling hackamores, those owls for, I don't know what he did the whole setup for. He would sell the whole setup too rarely, but usually just a bozal, a 5/8 or half-inch bozal would be $6 for a half-inch.
Oh my.
$7 for a 5/8, $8 for a 1-inch.
Wow.
Those are old-timey prices.
Yeah, for sure. Wow.
I remember him being very humble. Well, he was humble, man, but I remember him saying something about how, I could have those numbers a little bit wrong, but I don't think so. Because I remember a conversation once when he said a fellow wouldn't want to get up into the double digits because then he said, because then the other fellow has to stretch his paycheck a little too far. So he kind of felt like when you got up into 1 and a 0, by the time you were charging $10, it's like you wanted to be able to look that other cowboy in the eye, you know.
Oh my goodness!
It was a good one.
And this is the fellow that wanted to charge what, $2.50 for the book when you finished it, right?
For a book? Yeah, $2.50. And I said, how's that going to work? He said, well, you're going to go to the copy machine. When someone calls and wants a book, you just go down and run it off on the copy machine. And I said, Bill, I don't think you have any idea how thick this book is going to be. This is after we had already gone through the work, not putting 2,100 pictures in it.
Well, he might have had to charge $3.25 if you had kept all those 2,100 pictures in there.
Oh, good Lord. And I said, Bill, this book, no. You know, it was not easy to tell Bill no. You just didn't want to. You know, in your deepest part of yourself, you just wanted him to tell him yes to everything, because he just wanted that book so badly to be perfect in the way he wanted it. And I knew it wasn't going to be perfect. And I knew it wasn't going to be the way either one of us wanted it, because there were a lot of compromises that had to happen. Mm-hmm. And in the end, there were a couple times where he just quit on the book. And there were a couple times I wanted to quit. You know, 5 years, a little under 5 years, is a long time to work on a project elbow to elbow with somebody, you know, especially when you got to go out and find the money to do it. And good Lord, we had some conversations. One day he looked at me and he said, you know, a fella could just start braiding if he wanted to. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, does that mean we're done writing the book? Well, it pretty much did, because you had to learn what he was talking about. You know, he wouldn't just say, I'm not happy with the way this is going. We don't have enough. We can't, you know, we're not hitting it on the nail isn't on the head all the time. Well, you can't drive a nail with a tack hammer, can you? So I had to reapply myself and figure out how to get that done. Then he stopped talking about me being a braider. Oh, man, it was just really a lot there going on. And he did make me he made me a little string for my hat. He made me a little, what did he do? He made me a little string for my hat, and he made me a Honda for my rope. He made a bunch of Hondas one day that I was able to give to a bunch of people who wanted them. I maybe sold a few, but I think most of them gave away. And he made a beautiful Honda for a rope. I still use that rope that he gave me with every colt I start.
Wow.
It's held up well. But the braiding was sure a huge part of what made his world up. And there were some very good people that would come and braid with him. It was fun, you know. He looked forward to those sessions. People come drive up the hill and braid with him. And it was one of his people he taught how to braid, wrote a book about braiding even.
Really?
And
wow.
I think it had been a dentist. I think it was a dentist that was did it sort of for just to take his mind off having his fingers in somebody's mouth, which that would be hard to want your mind off that.
Right? Yeah.
Good Lord. So that guy got very good. I can't remember what his name is at the moment, but I met him. He was super nice.
Wow.
But there were always nice people around there, to be honest.
Huh.
Yeah, they really were.
I can imagine those moments and the people coming to visit and just the time, just by the way that you're talking about it, the time in that rawhide room. It certainly sounds like it would be those special meetings, you know, like friends coming over for coffee and chatting and that sort of thing. But you mentioned that Bill was not a drinker of coffee at all, and you mentioned, I know you've mentioned in previous conversations we've had that he wasn't much of a drinking man of coffee or alcohol. But it sounds to me like the process of writing that book would lead a fella to want to drink.
Well, this fellow wanted to drink one day. Did I ever tell you about that? In any of our conversations, did I ever tell you about the time that I had a six-pack in my pickup and I didn't want to just be out there? Did I ever tell you about that?
No, I don't think you did.
Okay, you ready?
I am ready.
Do you think there's anybody listening?
We've got quite a few folks listening here, so I think everybody's waiting now with bated breath.
Well, okay, I'm going to tell you. I was mad about something. I can't remember what, but I was upset. And I was tired, and I was overtired. And I've been just one of these days when you've just had it.
Mm.
Okay, so I never brought a bottle of beer in his house, and I also never saw a bottle of beer in his house, and I also never, I didn't drink. Anyway, but I bought a six-pack that day, and it was a memorable day because I bought a six-pack. I wasn't much of a drinking person. The times have changed since then.
I was just thinking in my mind, you and I have polished off a few bottles of wine, so that six-pack must have given you quite the taste.
No, actually, well, wait till I tell you. No, it was just, I was too busy to drink. And maybe I still am, but I'll tell you one thing. I wanted that bottle of beer so badly, and I didn't want to be sitting outside feeling like some sort of naughty girl sitting on the back of my pickup. I wanted to be in there with my feet up, having a beer, and talking to him and telling him about why I was so upset. And it had to do with some horse say. I know why it was. Anyway, I'll tell you about that later. So when I had to take somebody's horse and tie it to a phone pole outside their house. Anyway, it made me upset. So that's another story. And can you imagine me doing something like that?
No.
Yes, I did. And you're not going to leave your horse at my barn just because I can feed it and take care of it and this and that. So don't walk off and leave your responsibility here. I can return your horse for you. Here he is. So now he's tied to your phone pole right outside your house. Your horse, you deal with it. I guess I just have this sign on my head that says sucker, and people think they can come and hand me a leg rope, and I'm going to just walk off into the sunset with a little rainbow and a pot of gold at the end of it and have everything I need handed to me so that I can take care of the horse you just handed to me.
Right,
well, that isn't how it works. So I was upset. And I said, Bill, would you mind if I brought beer in your house? And he looked up at me. He said, well, you can have a shot of whiskey if you want. And I looked at him. I was just aghast. I said, there's no whiskey in this house. He said, well, yes, there is. And I looked at him with new eyes, and I thought, maybe he is a drinking man, and I never knew it. And I said, so I went out. I gave that some thought. And I went out, and I got that six-pack. I stuck 5 of them in the refrigerator, took the one I wanted, sat down, and I told him my tale. And when I got done with that beer, I said, well, tell me about that whiskey. Now you got my interest up. And I'm thinking to myself, he had 3 sons. They all went to, I don't know if they all did, but I believe they all went to Cal Poly. So certainly there was certainly plenty of ranch Brannons and ranch people in and out of there and hired hands and whatnot. I mean, you can't tell me that place with as many cowboys that walked through that kitchen that there's a bottle of whiskey still hanging around. He said, yep, it's right up there. He said, I brought it home after the war. And I said, Bill, that was 1945.
Whoa.
He said, yep, and I put it right there. He said, it's still there. I said,
wow.
Well, it isn't, because I cleaned that place out. I said, I cleaned that, I used to clean his kitchen for him after, every now and then. I wasn't too tidy around there. I mean, it didn't need to be as a ranch house, but, it was tidy enough to where I knew he didn't have any bottle of whiskey over the stove. So
by then it would have evaporated.
Well, I said, if you got a bottle of whiskey that old, being that it was 1998 at the time, or 97.
Oh, my goodness.
I was thinking, I wonder what a 43-year-old, 53-year-old bottle of whiskey tastes like.
Right? Put it in the truck engine.
I think, well, my engine. I was thinking, I don't think I need that second beer. I'm going to go check out this whiskey, I thought. Well, that was at about 7:30 in the evening, or 5:30 in the evening. Long story short, I guess he just figured he'd round me right through that whole house looking for that whiskey until I got my mind off my troubles, because he had me in and out of every closet. He followed me around. He must have been laughing himself silly, because he had me in every drawer. I realized I didn't clean his whole house. I had upended every box, every drawer, been in every closet. And he was right behind me with that cane and that walker he had there, watching me go through every box he had. And that's the night we found that 16-millimeter film of him and Tom. That's the night we found that film.
Wow.
And I finally, it was 10 after 2, 2:20 in the morning. And that tells you how much stuff I went through in his.
You started at, what did you say, 7:30?
I took a break for dinner. Took a break and made us some supper, and then I got right back to it.
Oh my
and
gosh.
He must have been laughing, you know. He could laugh. He could laugh with his mouth shut. He must have been laughing watching me panic around there looking for that whiskey. Anyhow, I didn't have another beer, nothing. And later I realized what he'd done is that he took all that anxiety I had, he took all that anger I had, and he just drained it out of me, set me on this whiskey chase. And, you know, how stupid can you be, Desmond? I mean, no, he doesn't have a bottle of whiskey in the house. No, he doesn't. But that's how you get to know somebody. You let them work their magic on you, and next thing you know, they trick you. Well, he tricked me. That's what he did. He tricked me. But, and then, so, you know, it's just like running a colt till they need to stop.
Right.
And at 10 after 2, I needed to stop, and I got all distracted, and I was over there looking at film, and then we were on to our next project. And by doing that, he stopped talking about making a movie because he found his movie. So that was, and also at the same time, The Western Horseman came out right around that time, and they shot a little movie of him. So he got to, that really helped me get his focus back on the book.
Gotcha.
Anyhow, it's actually kind of a miracle we ever got that thing done, to be honest.
Yeah.
I have to take the moment right here. There are 3 people I want to thank right at this moment. And one of them is unfortunately no longer with us, a woman named Candace Weir from, she was an Arabian horse trainer from Marin somewhere. I don't know exactly what town she was from, but she was a student of mine. And Gail Gallagher from up in Bend, Oregon. Those 2 girls took me to lunch one day, a day apart. Neither of them, they were both students of mine, and they both knew it, but they never knew that each other did what I'm about to tell you. And both of them, it was the same week. It might have been a day apart, maybe like a Tuesday and a Thursday, a Monday and a Wednesday. I was just finished getting over the shock of the first event when another one hit me square in the nose. One of them took me to lunch, and as they cleared the place, there was a check underneath that plate for $35,000.
No kidding.
Yep. $35,000. I brought that thing home to Bill. He liked that Spain. He took a look at that. He said, "Where did you get that?" And I said, "One of my students just loaned that to us so we can get this book out on time." And don't you know, 48 hours later, Candace Weir wrote me a check right on the spot for $25,000. Not under the lunch plate. She just handed it to me after her lesson one day. And both these ladies loaned that to Bill and to me without interest. They were the first to pay back out of the proceeds of the book. And that's, you know, in addition to pre-selling, I think we pre-sold 1,750 copies. Not for $250.
Thank goodness.
By the way, for $49. And Bill was just absolutely flabbergasted. He was such a nervous wreck. When I'd go off, you know, we had a bank account built right up. One day Wells Fargo called me. They said, "You have an extraordinary amount of money in a checking account. What are you planning to do with that?" And this was the branch down there right in the Carmel Valley Center. I said, "Nothing." He said, "Well, why do you have all that money in the checking account?" I said, "Because we're writing a book." He said, "Well, you know, that money could be working for you." I said, "I do know, and it's about to." And they said, would you like to talk to a financial planner?" I said, "No, definitely not." And they called, then they had another higher-up person call me, and they wanted to know where all the money was coming from. This is, I don't know whether they thought it was laundering money or not. And
Wow.
I said, no. I said, you can look. I said, you ought to be very happy. I said, I came down there and showed Wells Fargo. I don't know what they were thinking, but I showed them all my receipts for $49. So we had a huge amount of money in there. If you multiply 1750 times $49,
Yeah.
you'll see exactly how much money was in there. No, is that right? Yes. So, yeah, it was 1,750 books for pre-old. That's true, correct.
Wow.
I know because we had the number of my aunt, and Bill signed those with his stamp, all the ones that had been paid for in advance. Anyway, we were still shy, 35 and 25. That's what we were shy, 60,000 shy for the printing bill and all the production costs.
Okay.
And I must have mentioned it. Sometime along the way, because in that 1 week, 2 days apart, came those checks.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I was so moved. Are you kidding? I was just. It was an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah,
and it was
certainly.
just so heartfelt, and I couldn't do anything except say thank you because we desperately needed it, or I wasn't going to be able to pull it off.
Right.
You know, I didn't know how to sell any more books, and I was just about running on empty trying to get this one done. But anyhow, that was an interesting time of life, you can imagine.
Yes.
Really interesting time of life for me. Is there any more other stories I'm supposed to tell you?
Oh my goodness! You know, we've got several on our list here, but goodness, I'm worried we might end up going all night long.
Well, why don't we tell me which stories are left, and then we see whether maybe we can do it again sometime.
I'm always game to chat with you, and I think there's plenty of folks out here always game to listen too. So
maybe we've been talking an hour, right, at least?
Oh yeah, we've got about an hour and a half now. We've been going.
Well, what do people want? Does anybody have any questions? Maybe we should do that. Didn't we do that once before? We can certainly do that. For anybody out there that's listening, if you have any questions, and I'll type this in at the same time, if anybody has any questions, let's go ahead and type those into the comment section here on the live broadcast, and we'll get to answering some of those. And in the meantime, then, while folks are formulating their questions, Leslie, do you want to tell us a little bit about your trip west and some of the things that you've got going on currently? Well, I can at least laugh about it now. 10 days ago, I was bawling. I was crying every day, all day. I even admitted it on that dumb Facebook. Oh my God, I was so upset.
Yes, you did. I read that post. Yes, I read that post.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
No, goodness, no.
I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. Because, look, it's not funny. When you're trying to make a nice production, you got your phone, duct tape, and you got your phone strapped down to that fence with 6 different, look, Mark Gomez and several ladies down in Lakeville will attest to this. The Lakeville ladies saw this. I had no fewer than 5 of those little plastic zip ties, all jacked up together, hanging from an electrical cord, strapped to the side of a round pen. It was duct taped earlier. I mean, this was impossible. And then very many people tried to help and hold the camera and do things, and well, you just touch that screen, and then suddenly you're taking a picture of yourself. You touch that screen.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you touch that screen, somebody comes up there, and it's blazing sun. And by the way, it was definitely over 90 degrees. And you could, bright sun, you couldn't see a thing on there. You pick up the camera, bam, you turn it off and send that to Facebook. Finished, done, delivered. And it's just the worst.
Yeah.
So, I was so frustrated. So I realized that everybody said, oh, that's lovely, great. You know, you've been doing these little live talk things for a year almost. It started last August. And boy, they're so fun. We're learning so much. We're having so fun. Do you ever ride? I got some emails that said, do you ever ride? Do you still work horses? Do you work horses on the ground anymore? I thought, oh, man, I got to get out of the living room chair and get out there.
Right.
So I mean, they're going to think I'm just a talking machine. So I tried to film it with a phone because it looked like everybody else does it, and Patrick, it was a disaster. So, I mean, I was so mad. And then there was that one time when, don't ask me why, in North Clarendon, Vermont, we didn't drive that truck in there. I had to climb up the fence and try to reach the phone. It was on an 18-inch thing into the cigarette plug. And that was just the most, and then there's my friend Rick laughing his butt off in the front seat, and I'm hanging on this fence.
And somebody took a picture of that, didn't they? I remember seeing a picture of that.
Yes, not so fancy. And so then I thought, then I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. I mean, no one's ever going to believe I know anything the way I'm going here. I mean, you got to be at least have a little bit of, just a little decorum. You have to have some kind of presentation. This looks like I got...
Well, it was a presentation, what I saw.
Oh, it looked like I got shot out of a cannon sideways and hit the wall. I mean, half of these things, come on. The horse is zooming out of the picture. I'm hanging off the fence. You got a picture up inside my mouth. I mean, this is terrible, these things. I was just beside myself. I almost, I almost stopped my whole Facebook page.
Really?
And then I thought, I almost deleted the whole thing. I deleted several films. I got so upset one night, I just couldn't even believe it. Yes, because you know what? It's a bad reflection on the people who are learning from me to make it look like such a joke. It was a bad reflection on some of my students who are really professionals and really take themselves seriously and take me seriously. And I thought, I got to get somebody to film this, but then I didn't know how to put it on Facebook. I've got a lot of good film, as you know, tons of it, terabytes and terabytes of it, but who's going to run a camera? And then how do we get that onto Facebook? And then just the whole thing of watching someone and talking, and it suddenly looked like one day there was not 7,300 people on there on 20 minutes notice.
That's incredible.
Well, it certainly was. And then I'm going to carry on like some kind of a goofball. I was just so shook. I couldn't believe it. So somehow, I guess I got that point across that I was not too pleased with my deficiencies in this area. And I don't know what happened, but some sort of miraculous thing happened, and suddenly, I mean, I'm sure it was more than suddenly. It must have just been some slow evolution that eclipsed my ability to follow it. But suddenly, there were 6 people ready to call themselves a group and just take this off my plate. Oh, I know what happened. Here's the thing that broke the camel's back. I saw that in North Clarendon, Vermont, 48 hours later, 2 days later, there were 8,900 people that had watched that. Maybe went up to 9,003. And I thought, what if I just could get 50 cents each? Could I just get 50 cents a piece and pay some bills so that I could keep helping people and get my DVDs out?
Yeah.
Why is that so hard? So I started trying to do it, and then I realized that a lot of people out there have these different walls, and you can have a membership thing, and many people trying to help me with this for years. Well, it doesn't get very far, does it? Because I don't have it. So I just thought, look, 50 cents, 9,000 people, 50 cents. I don't want to be greedy. I got this bill thing. How about, Bill would have been happy with that, 50 cents.
Right.
Right? That isn't going to stretch a paycheck too far, as he would say. So I was not really thinking in that, it's not that I was trying to be super humble. It's just, I was just appalled at the idea that I could be, but I was actually impressed and appalled and impaled as well. I was so ready to give up. I was just done.
Yeah.
Because how do you possibly do something that's interesting to that many people? And you're looking for rent money, and you're suddenly realizing, all I want to do is show people this. I promised Bill I would. And now I've got to go out and do something to make the rent. I thought, this is just ridiculous. Why can't I get 50 cents? So somebody showed me how to do it, and I tried, and I got on this program, and I set all this up, and someone helped me even. They were sitting right there coaching me right through it. So I said, are we ready? And this is somebody who's good on computers, by the way. They run their own business. They run 2 other businesses. So I said, okay, I'm in good hands. So I said, I hit send on that thing. And what do you know? Somebody got a bill for €1,000 that they'd already paid 2 years ago. And then 300 other people got an invoice that was already paid, welcoming them to my next live session that was going to be for free because they already paid it, and here's the proof.
I remember getting that message.
Just don't even rub it in. And after that, I can tell you, you did not want to know me because I was, oh my God, Patrick, I just couldn't even stand it.
Fit to be tied, I'm sure.
I had an anxiety attack for 3 days, and I think my friends, the people that I talked with fairly often, I guess they were just pity on me or something, because suddenly there was a team of 6 right there. Right there. And they're still there. And it was absolutely decided that I should keep doing what I do best. And suddenly, you've got a graphic designer, you've got video editor, you've got somebody who knows all that other stuff about every little piece of Photoshop and building blocks for this and that, and they are really learning how to work together and getting this sorted out. We've only been at it about a week, but I got to tell you, the weight of the world lifted off me.
I'm
and
sure.
So I am still going to keep and then there's a wonderful woman out there in Ohio, Alexandria, Ohio, named Catherine Radke, who said, you know what? You know what you need? You know what I'm going to do? I said, what's that? She said, I think you ought to just come by here, and I think we're going to have a dinner. And you talk, and they'll eat, and I'm going to pull some gas money together for you for your trip. So once again, that was about the 10th time that week after I hung up, I just started to cry. I couldn't believe it. It was the most generous thing, and I just thought, she said, no, you don't understand. She said, people really want to hear more about how you release these horses to these maneuvers. I couldn't believe my ears. I just thought that was the coolest thing. So I was very grateful. I don't know if she's listening or not, but Catherine...
I don't know. She checks in quite a bit. I don't know. Kathy, if you're out there, send us a message to let us know that you're listening. Otherwise, I'll make sure that I send this recording to you so you get a chance to hear it.
Yeah, I just want to thank her. That was just the most thoughtful thing in the world. And then, one thing leads to another, and I thought, well, my friend, there's a really good editor and filmmaker named Jackson Hayek. He's out there in Decorah, Iowa. He's the one who's been putting all these clips up on YouTube for us, for better or for worse. They're all I could do. Really, in the end, the people who are listening to these things, they don't seem to care if I'm not so slick on this. And I wish I were. There was a time when I took, as Bill said, it's important to take pride in your appearance. And I do. But how you obviously you can't please everybody, but you also, by the way, can't stay up on all this technology and still be a full-time horse person either. I haven't figured out how to do it.
Right.
So I just feel so happy, and I just feel like the luckiest woman in the world to be able to, at this time in my life, just to be able to revamp and regroup so that I can, keep working and stay out there. And I've got a little team behind me that's going to keep the show on the road on the high-tech end and the membership end. And so I think come the 1st of August, we're going to have a little program where people can register and come up with a little monthly thing, and it'll go right through a little fan page called The Feel of a Horse. And if you're on that and you like to follow that, then there'll be a little opportunity to, I think we're going to do four live ones. Maybe they're not live, maybe they're just stuck on there right afterwards. I don't know. We'll get to live as soon as we get the right camera. A wonderful woman from Oregon, LeGrand, Oregon. She's Nancy Allen. She's called up and said, I want to buy you a camera.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then we find out that camera's so good, there's none left.
Oh.
There's none left. Well, that's what so then she said, well, she showed one other camera. Because we had to come up with something. So we know we're going to do, we're going to wait for that camera. I know when they say there's no camera, I know where they are.
Yeah.
They're over in Germany. They're in Germany, so I'll go over there. I'm going to go get it in August. And I have to go there anyway. When they say there's no cameras over here, it's because they're all over there. So you go into, they have an equivalent of what we used to have here called Best Buy. I don't know whether they still have that chain anymore here. I know they lost some stores. They downsized the number of stores, but in any case, they have something over there in Europe called Media Markt, and you can walk right in there and get any camera you want, because it's a lot closer to where those cameras are made, you see.
Ah, okay, yeah.
So they got a full supply. So anyway, Nancy Allen, thank you. So we're going to have our camera that we'll be able to do live. But for now, Jackson is going to take care of it. And so we're setting this up, and the team is just getting to know each other. We've had a couple of meetings, and it's just the most wonderful thing. It's just like it came out of nowhere, just like some of those storms that come up in central Colorado on the east slope, where suddenly it's a beautiful afternoon, and the next thing you know, it looks like the Wizard of Oz is about to, you think that you're going to see a cyclone coming up over the ridge. And that's just how fast this group coalesced, identified itself, and its pieces assembled itself. And suddenly, and you want to know the funniest thing of all? I'm the project manager. I'm the project manager.
I love it.
I know nothing about what they're doing. So, oh my God.
I love it. Well, they have faith in you, or they wouldn't be there. That's so fantastic. I'm so pleased to hear that you've got such a great crew now. That's amazing.
Yes. I mean, I think maybe I took it as far as I could without help. I mean, it's just really, actually, isn't there some, was it in the Gone with the Wind, where one lady says, what does it say is, what is it, something on the kindness of others? I have always depended on the kindness of others. Do you remember that?
I remember hearing that line. I think you're right. I think that's Gone with the Wind. It's been a while since I've seen that one, though.
I have always depended on the kindness of others, she said wistfully. Well, anyway, I feel blessed beyond measure. And I sometimes I look back and I think, my God, I don't think I can go any farther than I could go by myself. Right. I really hit the wall on this techno thing with that 100-degree day, and that phone is tipping sideways, and
yes,
just sending two or three accidental videos over to a waiting audience of thousands. No thank you for that. No possibility to retrieve it. No possibility to edit.
Right.
Hey, listen, I had a nervous condition that lasted 3 days. And then I cut them all off. You're lucky I even didn't cut the whole Facebook. I was that close. I was just going to get another job. Now, I told some friends, I'm going to go get another job.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be. But it's hard to know. I don't think I'm employable.
I'm sure you're employable. Oh, my goodness.
I don't know. I doubt it. Oh, my goodness. But anyway, so I will be going to Sweden on the 6th of August, and we have right outside Stockholm, there's a little town called Knutby, and it's a place I've worked and enjoyed for many years. Used to go there back in 2008 and 9, I think, and I think I went there about 4 or 5 years. There's a nice woman there and her husband, Bror and Anna Norlin, and so I'm going to meet Antonio over there. He's going to come from Barcelona. We're going to do a little deal with the jumping. Nice. And yes, it's going to be great. And he's got a lot to offer. He's a good rider. He's a good trainer. He's great with the horses and good with the students. And it's just nice to have it's nice to have a perspective from a couple of disciplines when you're dealing with a group of people, if you can manage it. Nice to have a balance between a male instructor and a woman instructor too, because you have a mixed group. It's sometimes everybody's not as comfortable with one or the other. So
sure,
we've done this. We did this in Italy a few times. Gone there and worked with some different people. It's been fun. Really is fun, and he's really good to work with. So I think people will really enjoy the time that they spend getting to know him.
That's fantastic.
And so we're on a new chapter with many things.
Good.
Many things.
Good, good. Well, it sounds like a very exciting chapter, and I am so, so pleased to see all of this shaping up for you. Very well deserved, and the timing sounds perfect.
Well, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, it's going to be, I really am excited because when we get done with the projects that are right in front of us right now, I think we're going to have some online coaching capabilities. We're going to have 4 live demos a month, and I'm going to do two talks a month and 4 live demos a month. There'll be 6 opportunities each month to, for a group that wants to be in that closed group. I think it's $15 a month. I think it is for that. So that shouldn't stretch your firm's paycheck too far.
Right. That's perfect. And that group you said is The Feel of a Horse on Facebook, right?
Yes, the access portal to the events that are going to be scheduled, and that, yes, The Feel of a Horse is the business page or the fan page, whichever you choose to call it.
Okay.
And all you have to do is just follow that one, and then here in a couple weeks there'll be a little notice that says that you'd like to participate in this. And of course you can quit at any time. There's no obligation. There's no obligation. There's no contract. There's no 1 year or anything like that. You just it's just a month at a time. And and it also, to be sure, if people don't want to, there'll still be some content available. It's not like I'm going to disappear
Good.
from the rest of my, but this is just if people want a little extra and they want to start really learning about technique and seeing lots of different horses a month, and how, because really, truly, every time you're with another horse, they do the same thing for me that they do for the owner. It's just maybe some of those things, maybe I don't let it last as long, or maybe I have something else to do, so that people see that there's a variety of things you could choose to do.
Right.
You're just about expanding your powers of observation. And the more you see done, the more you understand how many options there are. Each horse that comes along will present you with many new things to think about.
Certainly.
You know, horsemen.
Oh yes.
It's
It's a blessing to be able to work with so many horses in our time, and I always feel humbled and blessed at the same time to be able to do that, because there are so many folks that would love to do that and would gain so much from that experience, but for where they are in their career or in their life, they're just not able to do that.
No, it's a full commitment, as you know. It is a full commitment. There's a bunch of us out there that are in that. It's not as romantic as people think, is it?
No, that's for sure. It's a challenge for sure. And I'm seeing here that Kathy King has just joined us. She just sent a hello. So, Kathy, we were talking about you a few minutes ago. So when we end this broadcast, you're going to have to take a listen back through that. So,
hi, Kathy.
Perfect.
Going to see you soon.
Yes, absolutely. All right,
This
so
has been great.
that's given us a chance. We do have a couple questions that have popped in. Let's see. One here from Nancy. And Nancy asks, Leslie, why do you think that Bill liked you so much and trusted you with the book project? It was you that made it happen. How did Bill know that you were the right person? There's a question.
Well, it's not like there was a long line. I didn't notice anybody else queued up for the job. I mean, I think it was more desperation, Nancy. And plus, besides that, I mean, that's a nice question. I can't answer it. You'd have to ask Bill. I think there's plenty of times he didn't think I was the right person for the job. I can tell you that for sure. No, I can tell you that for sure, because one day he told me, we're not writing on our book anymore. And I said, I was absolutely gutted. Now, Nancy, you got that wrong. No, sorry, dear. No, he didn't think I was the right one for the job a lot of times because he said he had to train me up so I could walk my talk.
Oh, yeah.
He stopped that book 3 times because I didn't understand how to back the circle because somebody who shall remain nameless until I give them the little knock in the nose they deserve, somebody told him I couldn't ride. And they told him I was afraid to gallop a horse. And they told him I didn't know how to ride downhill. Somebody did me that favor.
Yeah.
So he stopped the book then. And what that means, what you have to understand is that when you're working on a project for 3.5 years, day and night, you're breathing it and living it and thinking about it, and you got a goal, and now you got a budget, now you got people involved, and you're looking at 2,100 photographs, and you got 17 photographers involved, and you got 52 different waivers and contracts and releases, and this is actually coming together full bore. And Bill tells you you're going to stop writing the book because somebody that he respected said I couldn't ride? Really? That's not what you call trust in me. I had to earn that back trust.
Yes.
And in fact, on my audiobook, I put out a little audiobook. It's not Bill's book on tape, so don't think that. I put a little book of my own out, which was going to be the sequel to Bill's book, which came out in 2006. But it's a 10 CD audio book, and there's a track in there called "Galloping Alongside Bill," which you ought to listen to that.
Yes, I've listened to that one several times. Yes, and that's a fantastic for anybody who hasn't heard or purchased the audiobook. That is a fantastic audiobook to have. Well,
somebody told Bill that I was afraid to gallop. Well, I don't know what people said a lot of things, but anyway. So when Bill, after that session, and that was galloping, he kept waiting for me to see. Okay, I'll just tell this, okay? We can just tell this part.
Certainly.
Or should we hang up? Is it too late?
Oh, no, it's not too late. You've already got them thinking and wanting, so let's go ahead and tell that. And I love hearing it, so.
Okay, so I came back one day from working with my horses. I don't know whether I was checking the fence for him or what, or there's a gate been left open up by those guys who do the towers on the top of the mountain. They were up forever leaving gates open and stuff. So I can't remember exactly what it was, but he wanted me to go check something, and I did. And I came back, I couldn't find him. So that was worrisome, because you always could find him. So I was going to go. I didn't know what to do, actually. Because where would he be? His horse was there. His car was there. He wasn't falling down in the bathroom. He wasn't in the saddle room. He wasn't in the meat room. He wasn't in the ride room. He wasn't in the barn scraping fat. So, where was he? I'll tell you. I finally decided I was going to go down because I didn't have a cell phone. I was going to go down and make a call. His family wasn't there. They lived up on the ranch too, and I didn't go in their house. They weren't there to ask for a phone. And I couldn't find him. I got in the truck and I went down the hill and I see him down there. Looked like he was kneeling in the ditch. Really? Right there. At his age, with those 2 canes of his, down there in that ditch, on the steepest part of the road there was. I got alarmed. I thought, oh my God, this is when you hear like people have Alzheimer's and they just take a hike and walk out. And I thought, no, he's too, listen, I had breakfast with him. He doesn't get Alzheimer's in 2 hours. So, he was sharp as a tack then, and he was sharp as a tack when I pulled up, and I said, Bill, are you all right? He said, yeah. That's what he would say, yep. I said, well, what are you doing? And he looked up at me as though, can't you see? Yes, I do see, but what are you doing? You're kneeling down in this ditch, and you got your cane up there on the hill, and what is going on? I said, I'm trying to get this rock out of here. He didn't say it like that. He said, I'm removing a stone. Something like that he would say like that. You're removing a stone. I'm thinking, what in the world are you removing a stone here? It is hot. He had his full coat on and his shirt and all, he always had a top button done up and everything. Come on. Long sleeve shirt and a nice coat, and he's down there ditching. And I take that stone now. I can do it. So I got out of the truck and I got that. And I looked at him and I said, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? He said, well, this is called ditching. I said, all right. Now I knew okay, that's the end of it. You don't ask anymore. It's called ditching. That's enough. Good enough. You're ditching. I said, can I help? He said, no. I said, okay. He said, he said, probably ought to be writing on that book. And I said, but I thought we weren't writing on the book. He said, well, maybe we are. And I thought, wow, this is strange. You know, come on. Now we're in the riddle. You're ditching, and I'm not writing the book. Now I am writing the book. And he said, or you could go saddle your horse. So I said, well, I think I'll saddle the horse. After that, I was in no mood to start writing. That didn't sound so good. You know, I wasn't quite sure where we were going with all this.
Right.
So he said he'd be out to the house in an hour. He got that last rock out of there. And he got in the car, and he said, why don't you meet me down at the top of the hill? I said, okay. In the truck? He said, no, in your horse. And he said, yeah, well, the fellow's got to walk his talk. And I said, okay, well, here comes the test. I guess I'm going to pass or fail this one, you know. So if you could see his driveway in the first place, I don't think too many people like driving down it, let alone riding a horse down in that ditch. He was clearing out that ditch for my mare's feet. And it was between the pavement and a dang near vertical hillside kind of. But it's just like the pasture ended right down in that ditch, and it was maybe, well, if it was anything less than 45 degrees, it was pretty steep. You could basically, there's places where my stirrup was coming up on the grass that was coming right up off that hill. That's how steep it was.
Wow.
She was really literally just enough room. He had ditched. He'd been doing it a couple-day project. I didn't realize it. I caught him on the last day. He'd been going out early and ditching so that my mare would have a spot to put her feet between the end of the tar or the concrete, whatever that is, the road base, and where the dirt was. And of course, that was a really steep, a couple little switch back there, and very steep, and a lot of water eroded down in there. It was very deep and you just wouldn't want to lope down there. Anyway, told me to do it, so I did. And he drove down. The worst part of it was driving down next to him, because he was trying to see if I knew how to ride at the gallop down that hill. And somebody told him I was afraid to go down hills and that I couldn't gallop. Not that he said that, and he told me at the top of the hill, he said, well, it's kind of been some discussion about how you don't ride, you know, over in Europe, you don't ride very much. You don't ride very well. You do mistakes over there. Something like that was said. So I said, well, I'm sure I do make mistakes, but it's not because I don't get on the horse. I get on the horse and I make mistakes. That's probably true.
Right.
And I just wouldn't. I mean, come on. Where are we going with this? Well, where we were going was that the book was stalled out from something someone had said. So I said, look, you say, and I said, and I'm apparently afraid of hills too. I said, I didn't say this, but I think I'll race you to the bottom. I can run this horse down that hill faster than you can make that turn in that car. That's what I was thinking. But I didn't say it. I was upset though. And so we spent the next 3 days galloping on the flat, start, gallop depart, stop, one stride, stop, turn around at the walk. Then turn around at the gallop in your own space. Just turn in that space. No, you know, none of these where you need a football field to turn around at the gallop. Right. We're talking about run it down, turn it around, run back. So, okay, now what? And I'm really, it was a borderline. It was a little challenging, you know. It was challenging mentally to understand why there was all of a sudden so much pressure. And sure. the pressure was very understandable. If you think about his point of view, he didn't want to be misrepresented.
Sure.
He didn't want to find out that the book was written by somebody who's afraid to ride.
Right.
And I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to do that either. So maybe Nancy understands now.
Wow. You had to fight your way to earning that, for sure.
Oh, he stopped the book 4 or 5 times on account of things that were said. Because a lot of this came from people that, you know, were just trying to look out for him, really. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, I mean, when you know Bill, you wouldn't want anybody to exploit him or misrepresent him. He was one of the most wonderful people I ever met in my life. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if somebody can give as much as he can give and take as little as he takes in the process of giving what he gives, and leave you with a confirmation that your instincts and your handling of a horse and your development as a human being is something that he's going to invest in while you're learning. That's huge.
Yeah.
And even if we hadn't finished the book, just to lose him as a coach and lose him as a friend would have broken my heart. I promise you.
Mm.
It was just terrible. So anyway, we got over those hurdles, and we got the we got Candace and Gail coming in with their loans at the right time. We got Steve Lambert and Grace Lambert coming in with their incredible skills up at the Microsoft Redmond campus, where they helped me lay out the book, and some wonderful people helped me work on that. And we got it. I mean, it sort of came together, and sort of like this other thing is coming together now. It's just I think it's a matter of timing, kind of, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. For sure.
So
That's
anyhow,
fantastic.
Nancy, sorry to burst the bubble of me being the chosen one, but I think Bill was just desperate, and and then he had to make me prove it. So anyhow, it was a trial by fire, honey.
There you go.
So what other, was there any other question there?
Let's see. Well, Deb put in the question, we talk about those 2,100 photos. Where are all the photos now?
Oh, that's easy. They're right here. I'm looking at the negatives.
Ah.
There's a lot more than that.
In all of those albums that I've seen on your bookshelf, yeah?
Yeah, there's a lot more than 2,100. Yes, and to be quite honest with you, I mean, the quality on all of them is not so great. I just laid out the 2,100 that Bill wanted because, really, to be honest, it wasn't the photographic value or the technical, it wasn't the skill of the photographer at the time. I mean, we were just getting these done at the 10-cent store, just turning this film over as fast as we could, because when Bill, believe me, as fast as he could chop that book off, he could rack it up too. I mean, when he got ready to produce that book, you better find some energy and some time, because you did not want to miss that train. And when he hit the brakes on that thing, I'll tell you, it was like getting bucked off your horse. It was just, right now, you are not writing that book. That's it. And I understood it. I mean, but I understood it too, because he was at the end of his life.
Yeah,
Can you imagine how it would have felt to him to suddenly find that he had given a green light, and he's going to open the pages of a book that's taken this much of his time and some money that he didn't know whether the book would ever sell, and the money would get repaid. He didn't want his family to have to be responsible for those bills, and all of those concerns were very real. I think very understandable.
Yeah.
So when he gets people coming up and saying things that, trying to look out for his interests, and that it was doubt that he had every right to consider and stuff. But these pictures anyway. So a lot of them are not so great, but the value in them was learning to observe. When you have, let's say, there was a motor drive on those cameras all the time. Richard Levine was a prolific amount. There were a lot of people that took pictures in there. Pat Weedman, Lori Klein, Gail Nelson. A lot of other people contributed in a very wonderful and generous way to this project. And many of them had good cameras. Many of them were good photographers, and they just sat there and ran that. They just clipped it off. They were popping them off, 15 frames a second kind of thing. It just went so fast you couldn't believe it. So Bill wanted me to see the tiny things that the horses did with their bodies, with their heads, with their mouths, with their eyes.
Yeah.
Look here what happened before what happened.
Right.
Look what he did with his neck. Look what he did with his neck before he put his hip there. Look how he balanced there. Look what he was looking at when he missed that lead. Look what distracted him. Look the way that guy's foot was when he missed that lead. Things like that. I knew those pictures backwards and forwards. That's why when it came time to edit those down to 725, it took quite a bit of time, but really, it was an easy job. That was an easy job. What was not easy is that I didn't have any big tables. You know, I was trying to do this in the little house next door and then all over his house. Oh, that was the tough part.
Right.
Is not having any space to lay all that out.
Right.
I do wish the one regret I have, and that, well, maybe there are more than one regret, but not too many. They're not big regrets. They're just sort of trivial regrets. But one would be that I never took a picture of his house with those pictures out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that would have been a sight to see.
Oh, come on. Well, because he couldn't even get up. I had the pictures right there on his lap, on his armchair, on the floor in front of him. I mean, listen, if those pictures were coming out, there was not going to be anything except sitting around, and then when you get up and look at them, I'd have to bring section and section and section over to show him. Because if he were going to get up and start trotting around that living room with all those pictures there, that would have been the end of that.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Too funny.
Well,
Too funny.
Should we wrap it up, or is there one more question?
You know, I think we should wrap it up. I feel like we've got enough still to chat about that we should probably go ahead and, in the meantime, I think you and I might try to schedule another broadcast here if you're game for it.
Oh, Patrick, twist my arm. I'm talking to you.
It is always so much fun, and I thank you so much once again for joining me for this broadcast, and I know that everybody out here that's been watching and listening, we've got lots of great comments coming in from folks that are so pleased.
Well, thank you. It really is a pleasure. I'm so glad that you're giving voice to this, and I hope that the people who may have known Bill, who are listening, I hope that they feel that I am doing him justice. You never know what people think and feel, but I certainly know in every cell of my being what an honor it was, and it was a great pleasure. It was a great pleasure. It was also, well, I mean, I've already expressed there were some hard times, there was some hard work, there was a lot of uncertainty about it, but in the end, he was very happy with the book and very surprised. He thought it was a little bit large. He thought it would fit right next to the book that Ray and Tom had written. And
with 2,100 pictures.
Comment, you know. Well, actually, we got it down to 725, but yeah, it was a bit heavy, he thought. But he's not the only one who registered that complaint. But for all that it was, and I hope that I hope that people were happy with the way that I represented him tonight, the people that knew him, his family or friends, because all I've really ever wanted to do is to help him, to realize the things that he told me right a couple days before he passed, which is coming up now. He passed on July 20th in 1999, which is just around the corner. It comes around every year. It's a little bit of a tough day for me.
I'm sure.
Because, it is. He probably won't, I don't think I've ever really felt much closer to anybody in terms of being aligned in thought, aligned in outlook, aligned in purpose,
Yeah.
I never had to explain myself. He never had to explain himself, except the fact that we couldn't talk together about much. We never had to explain anything. I know that's... I'm sorry, I know that sounds crazy. That doesn't even sound right, what I just said, but I hope you know what I mean by that. Let's just say, a lot of times nothing needed to be said because we both got it.
Yes.
And the thing that his challenge was trying to get me, I think, to understand what he meant by what he said. And that really was about the communication, which is what he was trying to get across anyway. Which is that how do you do this and teach this? So I'm still in the process of figuring that out, and I'm looking forward to trying to share these things and hope that I'll see some of these nice people who took the time to listen tonight. Maybe we'll cross paths somewhere down the road.
I'm sure you will. And I was not fortunate enough to meet Bill, but it sure seems to me that you're doing a great job of spreading his message and his principles. I think,
That's a good. Yeah, best I can. Best I can. I hope I'm representing him well and the things that he felt were important. I do my best anyway.
Yes.
So I really appreciate this opportunity, and I guess after we close out here, we can figure out when we're going to talk again another time.
Certainly. We should definitely do that. Well, again, Leslie, thank you so much, and I want to recommend to folks, I want to encourage everybody listening to visit your new Facebook page there, The Feel of a Horse. Definitely find that page on Facebook, click that like button, and make sure you follow along. Because there's definitely some great stuff being shared, and more, it sounds, to be shared on there in the days and weeks and months to come.
Yes, it will, and I'm going to next time we talk, I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about the 6 wonderful people that have stepped up and are making this happen for everybody. So
Yes.
I just want to say hats off to all of them. We've got a wonderful. I'm just going to introduce them right now. There's Rick Weinberg up in New Hampshire, and he is our reviewer. He's sort of like he's the rudder in a way. He's just back there. He's the gadget man. He's the guy who does all the assessment on the big questions about things that we don't know about. And then there's Nancy Allen out in Oregon. Got Lisa Popowich down in Southern California. We've got Leela Olson up in New Hampshire as well. And we have Kirby Wyckoff down there in Pennsylvania, and Tori Seavey out there in Colorado. So that's our team. And they are very, very dedicated, and they're going to put this through for you. So I'm grateful.
Awesome. That is fantastic. So Rick, Nancy, Lisa, Leah, Kirby, Tori, thank you all so very much for keeping this gal on the right path and helping her with all this technological stuff that I know we all struggle with. It's a learning curve for sure. So to have a great team like that is priceless.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for tonight, Patrick.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leslie. I really appreciate it. And you hang on there, and we will chat here for another few minutes. And gang, I want to thank you for tuning in for episode number 30 of Talking About Horses. I really appreciate you giving Leslie and I your ear for this time. Please remember, if you've missed any of it, you can access the full broadcast through Facebook, YouTube, from iTunes, or by streaming directly from my website by accessing the Talking About Horses page from the Education drop-down menu. Through whatever platform you're listening, please be sure to give us a rating, comment, a review, and a share with your friends. Your word of mouth and support is the fuel for this fire. Thanks so much, gang.
Hey there, gang. Patrick King here. Every other week, I send out an exclusive email newsletter to help riders reach their goals with their horses. These 5-Bit Friday emails include evaluations of exercises and movements for your horse, rider psychology tips, my personal reviews of books or videos, important thoughts on equitation, anatomy insights, quotes to ponder, lots more. 5-Bit Friday is only available if you subscribe to our email list. If you're interested in receiving these exclusive emails, register today by visiting my website at pkhorsemanship.com/newsletter. Thank you in advance for signing up, and I hope you enjoy and gain lots of value from 5-Bit Friday.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Talking About Horses with Patrick King. If you enjoyed today's show, please leave a review and subscribe. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit pkhorsemanship.com. We'll catch you next time.